Well, good afternoon, everyone. You're all finding your seats. Again, welcome to the Texas Hill Reservoir Notice of Preparation, Public Scoping Meeting and Informational Meeting for the Texas Hill Reservoir Rezone and General Plan Amendment Project. Just to introduce the folks on staff that are in this room, I'm Tom Purcell with the Long Range Planning Unit. Behind me is Brett Sampson, also with Long Range Planning. My colleague Dana is in the front row. And we also have Brian Deason here with the El Dorado Irrigation District, who's also been part of this effort as well. So the purpose of today's meeting is basically to receive all of your public comments and questions concerning the Texas Hill Reservoir Rezone and General Plan Amendment Project. This scoping meeting is basically the first public step for any project that requires environmental review. So the main goal of this meeting is not to take any action. So the county will not be taking any action or even recommending any action today, but rather this meeting is to receive public and agency comments on the information that should be included for the environmental impact report that's being moved forward for the project. And I do have seen many comments already come in to our project email on file or to my phone, so thank you. So the primary meeting today will be to receive the additional comments. I'm sure our admin staff will remind, when we take comments, they are limited to 3 minutes. And we do have some other rules that will help us accurately record every one of your comments for the record. So when you do have a comment, when it's your turn, come on up. We have a microphone. Just make sure that it's turned on with the green color. Go ahead and say your comment for the record, and then we'll just go through as many comments as need to up here at the microphone. Before we open it up for comments or questions, though, I want to start off with a little bit of overview on the project, what it is not. Since I've already received many questions, then I'd also like to turn it over to the environmental review consultant who's participating remotely, and she will give you more background on what environmental review is being done for the project, where we're at in the process, and then how you can get involved in that step as well. So with that, I'd like to share my screen. Can you all hear okay? I am pretty loud, but I want to record here. This works. Is it enabled? I was waiting on the host. It still shows disabled. No, it still shows disabled. Bear with us, folks. We're just getting the Zoom technology up and running. And if folks are just entering the meeting, there are more seats up front. You're welcome to sit where there's space. Also, scroll down. We want to look at the location map, which should be the second figure, the next one. That one, correct. Okay, so I just wanted to give folks a background, we'll start with the general information. So as many of you know from the notice, the project site is located around 1.5 miles south of the city limits of Placerville. That's represented by the line at the top of the map, which represents US Highway 50. So the area it's around 6,000 acres, I believe. But it could be larger than that. But it's the area of the projects is represented by that red line that's on your map there, that's in front of you. Just to the south of that map, we have Pleasant Valley Road, and on the east of that map, we have Cedar Ravine Road, just to give some context with where that's at. So if we could scroll to the FAQ page. And while we go there, I'll just give some general background as to what this project is, and why the county is undertaking it at this time. And then if there are any more technical questions regarding water resources or other things, there might be other folks, Brian or other folks who can help with that information as well. But just to give you some background, in about 1965, even before that, the then water agencies, such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, had determined that there was an area in western El Dorado County that could potentially be used as an additional reservoir site, should it ever be needed for long-term water planning. So basically, long story short, that reservoir boundary that was drawn up in 1965 became the basis of what our county and other water agencies used for planning for a possible reservoir. So that meant on the county side that our general plan land use maps all received a dashed line called the Texas Hill Reservoir take line to represent the area that could be inundated by the proposed lake, just to put folks on notice that was still in the planning. The same thing happened to our zoning maps, and off and on over the last few years, most of the properties within that possible reservoir boundary were either designated or zoned to prohibit residential uses. That wasn't consistent the entire time since 1965. There were a few small windows where a few residences were allowed by the county. However, in most part, that lake boundary, the Texas Hill take line, is what prevented most residential uses from starting or expanding. So flash forward to about 2020, the county and the El Dorado Irrigation District have been an ongoing relationship over this land and looking at the long-term plans. Approximately 2020, the El Dorado Irrigation District determined that this reservoir site was no longer needed for their long-term water storage planning because there were other alternate water sources that could be used to supply all the water needs current and future customers within this area. That would include in times of drought as well. It wasn't just in good years where water is flowing, but with the contingencies in mind as well. And I know a lot of folks were concerned about that. So with that, if we scroll down, you open the FAQs. So open the Y as the county. So I'll look at the same thing. So I wanted to also orient folks into our Texas Hill Project webpage. So if you look at the notice of preparation that went out, so that most of you have, I believe there's a link there. If not, Aurora, would you scroll up to let folks see how they can get there? So I can definitely send out a link. And how many of you, with a show of hands, are subscribed to our Texas Hill rezone project updates? We do have an e-blast. So I'll show you how to get to the web page, and then if any of you are interested, as I suspect many of you are, of receiving project updates as soon as new information is posted, then you can receive that e-blast. So to get to our project web page, which has the instructions and all the current information, our county just redid its website. So you want to go to the El Dorado County homepage, run your cursor over the land use at the top, hover down to long range planning. That's where I work out of. click on long range planning. And then under a list of projects, we'll find another link to the Texas Hill pages. And that's what I'm going to be reading from or using today to show you where the information can be found and hopefully answer a lot of your questions or your friends' questions if they have them as well. So that's where I'll be starting here today. Let's see. So you're showing under the Y. There we go. Bear with us, folks. So I think we've already touched base on some of the basis of the project, but it was approximately early 2020 when the project was launched. And based on the conversations with the El Dorado Irrigation District and county staff, our Board of Supervisors did direct long-range planning staff to go ahead and process the required general plan amendment and rezone as this territory was no longer to be considered for a reservoir in the irrigation district's long-term planning, at least for the foreseeable future. Let's see, can we scroll down to the supporting documents? A lot of questions I've received are, is my property affected by the project? What does this mean? So one of the key takeaways is the county is not proposing any subdivisions or development plans or increases in density, anything as part of this project. This project, to use common English, is more like an undo because those plans that were added to our general plan, that take line, those older zones to prohibit residential uses are no longer needed if the lake is no longer needed. And so this is basically a project to take the zone and the general plan land use designations back to what they would be in areas of this reservoir site if there wasn't a lake. So basically it's removing the zones that were related to the lake and the general plan designations that were related to a lake and that boundary called the Texas Hill take line that were all related to consideration of that potential lake. To bring it back to what it would have been in this area, roughly matching the surrounding zones of the surrounding parcels. So basically, we're just taking the planning documents and tweaking them, all the different levels that are needed to remove the constraints that were added because of the lake planning. So that's a long story short. So let's see, do we have that yet? Scroll down to supporting documents. Let's see, general plan land use. So this map represented by the blue colors, this is the area in our general plan that was designated as a potential lake within that planned reservoir boundary. So many of you are here because your properties are either within this blue area or are touching this blue area. The county did send about 2,500 additional notices out to a 1 mile radius. So many of you have also heard about the project, but are not directly in this area. But this is the area of the map that has been a long-term designated for the lake that the county is looking to change as part of this project. Let's see. And so that's basically concluding staff's presentation at this point. I do have the environmental consultant, Shahira, online, and she would like to give a brief overview of the environmental review process and also how all of you can be involved as we move forward. Okay, Shahir, if you were on, if you could unmute yourself.
I believe I am unmuted. I'm just gonna try, and I'm gonna go on video. So, and I'm hoping that I can share my screen. So, my name is Shahira Ashkar. I'm with ICF, and we are working with the county on the environmental review process. So I wanted to just sort of really briefly go over what the CEQA process is, where we are in it, what the opportunities for public input are, and a little bit about what we anticipate the EIR to address. So I cannot share my screen. Can somebody enable me to share my screen? Or I can just talk.
Go ahead and try sharing now.
Okay, thank you. It still won't let me. So I'll just talk for now. I'll keep trying. So there are sort of three big pots for the CEQA process, and we are in the first one, which is the scoping phase. So we the county sent out a notice of preparation for the draft environmental document, environmental impact report on this project on May 3rd, and that started a 30-day public review and comment period for scoping, and this is the public scoping meeting, which is the purpose of which is to get input from interested parties and the public, all of you, on what will be addressed in the EIR. So basically the scope of the EIR. So the primary purpose of CEQA is to disclose potential impacts, potential environmental impacts, and CEQA has a list of about maybe 15 to 20 resource areas that are suggested to be analyzed. Not all of them have to be analyzed, and a lot of what is analyzed and at what level of analysis depends on what the project is. So for this project, I can share my screen
share
now. Okay, there's my graphic. There's my graphic. So yeah, we are here at the public scoping meeting. So the CEQA guidelines provide this sort of list of resource areas to be considered, and there's been some preliminary analysis, and that looks like areas with potentially significant impacts include these 5 at the top, which are air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, biological resources, cultural resources, and noise and vibration. So those will be discussed in detail in the EIR. Preliminary analysis has also indicated that there are a lot of resource areas where there is likely to be no impact or a less than significant impact, and those are listed here. Much of that is because this project in particular does not involve a lot of additional population or a lot of construction. So these are the areas that we would not anticipate to be addressed in great detail. This would be a focused EIR. We welcome all comments on these 5 potentially significant resource areas or the others as well. And so back to the CEQA process, when this public review period closes and the county has all your comments, those will be considered, and the county will prepare a draft EIR that's anticipated to happen in the fall of 2024. There will be a notice of availability, which will tell you that it is available, the dates that the public comment period will be, it'll be 45 days, and where you can find copies electronically or hard copies to look at the EIR. Also, during that 45 days, there's going to be a public meeting. This is a public hearing. It may not be a hearing. Where the county is looking to you for more comments about the contents of the EIR. So when that 45-day review period closes, then the county takes all those comments and reviews them, considers them, and responds to them. And that comes out in a final EIR with any changes. And this is that's anticipated around winter 2025. This is a very generalized graphic. So what's not on here are planning commission meetings and board of supervisors meetings. So after the final EIR, there will be a planning commission meeting that is also open to the public. So there are a number of points along this process where public involvement is required by CEQA. So I think that's about all I've got to say. I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Okay, well, thank you, Shahira. So in terms of the next steps, as Shahira indicated, we do have it. We also will have that posted on the webpage in terms of any schedule changes and what to expect next. But this project is looking to be concluded in 2025, and there are specifics on that same webpage as well. Let's see if I have that. Somewhere. In any case, the updated schedule does look to conclude by early to mid 2025. But we will definitely send out any specific updates. For example, as soon as the environmental review is completed, as Shahira indicated, there will be notices of that will go out to the same 1 mile area that all of you received the notices in. We will also have other notices come out. And so if you are subscribed to the project webpage updates, then you will also receive those notices as well. For example, upcoming hearing notices for the Planning Commission and ultimately the Board of Supervisors will also be posted on the webpage. And those will also go out, I believe, to the same folks that receive these notices now. So you will receive many pieces of paper to make sure all of you are involved as you want to be with the project.
If there was anything additional you wanted to share, you can share your screen if you'd like.
So that concludes staff's presentation and the consultant's presentation. Are there any other county staff that wanted to present before we open it up to public comment?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. Brett Sampson, Long Range Planning Manager. I would just really encourage all of you to go on the county website under the Long Range Planning page and look up the projects, and everything will be posted about Texas Hill. And so really, we appreciate your participation today. And I just wanted to really kind of enhance what Tom said earlier, in that really today is to take that initial set of public comments on the project to inform us on what the EIR needs to look at. So the scope of the EIR. So there's no decisions. We haven't, really analyzed anything of yet. And really this project involves removing that take line from the general plan and to make the zoning consistent with the general plan designation, so that the affected parcels up there have the same rights as all of the surrounding parcels. Right now, if you're in that area, I don't believe that you can even pull a building permit for a accessory shed or a pool or a garage or any type of building permit. So you have a legally built house that received a building permit back in the day, but now you're going to add some amenities to your house that was legally built, and you're not allowed to receive any future building permits. And that's because of that reservoir take line. So it's really, some of you might be wondering, well, why is this a county project, and why is the county involved in this? And it's because it's not a developer or a privately funded project. And it's really to ensure that the zoning up there is consistent with the neighbors, that that the affected parcels have those same rights. And so right now with that conflict with the general plan take line and the zoning, it really puts people in a bind on what they can do with their property. I just want to reiterate that this project doesn't involve any subdividing. We're not creating any new parcels with this project. We're not allowing for a densification up there of housing. It's really to take a constraint off and to ensure that everybody up there has the same rights as everybody else. It's something that was planned for originally for that take line and for a potential reservoir. But over time, EID has realized that they don't need that reservoir for various reasons. So the county sort of views it as an unnecessary burden on those homeowners up there. And I just wanted to reiterate that this project doesn't involve any type of construction whatsoever. So I just wanted to be clear with that. But thank you so much for coming today. We're here to take your comments. And just one moment, ma'am. Certainly avail yourself of the website and all the materials on it. And so what we're going to do right now, and man, just hold your comments until you get up, but we'd like everybody that is willing to come up and give comments on what they want to see in the EIR, or certainly a comment whether you're in favor or against the project is fine as well. And then after public comments, certainly feel free to email into the Texas Hill project email, and certainly staff will get back to you and answer your question, any kind of specific questions that you may have about the project or process. But today is really to take your comment and to ensure that we look at all the things that we need to look at in that EIR. So if we could go to, ma'am, did you have a short question? Go for it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. We will save that for we'd like everyone to come up and give a public comment to that effect. If you'd be willing to come up in a little bit and state that, we'll certainly take all of these comments into consideration, and it's part of the administrative record, and it's part of the environmental impact process. And certainly we will, if you make that comment, we will be looking at that for sure. So yeah. Yeah, we're gonna roll into the public comment period, and that's really the important part of this process. And so what we'll do is we'll go, Aurora, if you want to kick us off, and everybody will do in the room first, and then we'll go to any online participants, and everybody gets 3 minutes. And certainly you can say anything you like about the project, but we as staff would really appreciate if you have something specific that you want us to look at in that environmental impact report. We want to know about it because we work for you, and we want to know what you want us looking at. And again, we've set up a full project website for outreach. Feel free to sign up for that newsletter that's on that project site as well, so you get all of the email blasts about it. You will, as Tom said, be notified. We're doing a full 1 mile radius notification to the project site, so it should really encompass quite a few people that it would have the potential to be impacted by this project. So Aurora, why don't you kick us off?
Individuals will have 3 minutes to address or to make public comment. The timer will notify you when you have 30 seconds remaining to comment, and at 3 minutes. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the Planning Commission hearing room, and then from those participating through Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you are joining the meeting by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you are joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record.
Don't everyone rush up
Okay.
at once.
So
Come on
we're
up.
now opening the meeting for public comment.
I'm Frank Mosbacher, and I was looking over the project, and I had a few questions and some ideas on this. In the aggregate, the county owns all those parcels labeled EID, is that correct? Or EID does, which I assume is county. EID, but isn't that also county? Well, it's not county, okay. Well, then I had a proposal for EID. The county is, if I understand it, is defaulting to the general plan zoning. Is that right in this EIR?
Well, the county is actually changing the general plan land use designations and zoning to be consistent with the neighboring parcels because of the proposed removal of the lake from the long-term planning in this area.
Okay.
So it's more like an undo, but there's a lot of steps that have to happen to
Okay.
undo.
Got a couple points here I'd like to make. The 1960 plan was looking ahead quite a long ways, and I'm interested in seeing if the planning team can also look ahead and look at a couple areas. One has to do with access to Weber Creek. If it's possible to put some kind of a zoning in there that would allow a public access recreational type of zone through the Weber Creek. That's a long-term look at the recreation, but I think it'd be appreciated now if there was that type of a buffer included in there, if that zoning is even possible at this time. The other thing that I realize, and when you look at that map, you see that is a pretty contiguous area of open space. And it's also, I'm sure, looked at as a fire hazard too. I'd like you to look at the cumulative impacts of removing the wildlife habitat, if that's what might happen because of this zoning, because that is somewhat limited now in that Placerville periphery, just to see what the impact is. I'm sure that might be one of those things that we're considering. And other than that, I didn't have any other one, but I think the big one that I was interested in is not foreclosing the possibility of putting in that recreational access through the Weber Creek stream side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Terry Smith. So in addition to asking about the traffic light with the camera, because people keep running this stop sign nonstop. Now, what about left-hand turn lanes to get into our road? I mean, otherwise, we're never going to get across to our property. And that's about it. That's all I want to know is the traffic end of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
Appreciate your comments.
How are y'all doing today? My name is Mr. Woods. I live at 1780 Quarry Road. I'm a United States Geology retired USGS, but that's the federal end of the whole issue. As far as looking at what the county is doing on this EIR, apparently they're getting it ramped up to divide all these parcels up. What exactly they're going to do with them when that happens, it's a very sensitive area. There's a lot of existing mines along there. There's 7 of them north of Weber Creek in this area. And then you have the tertiary American River that runs under the Placerville Divide. And a lot of the mineral rights are owned separately from private property rights. Like the incidents we see on Quartz Hill, almost 95% of those homes don't own the dirt that they're built on. They're all held under mineral rights. And so in the future, as the price of gold goes up, I predict that all hell is going to break loose in El Dorado County, because all these people that own the mineral rights are going to go back in and mine their minerals out. That's just one issue. Another issue is the fact of one of the largest earthquake faults in Northern California runs right under this project. And I haven't met the geologist for this county yet, but it's called the New Maloney's Fault, or as most people know it, the Mother Lode Fault. It's where all the gold is. And it runs right under the intersection there where Big Cut Bridge goes over Weber Creek. In fact, the underground tertiary American River Channel runs right under that area too, right under the Placerville Ridge where Donovan was mining all the gold up on top of the ridge. But, and we have been seeing a huge upsurge in earthquakes in Northern California. Talking about how the New Melones Fault hasn't moved in thousands of years. Well, we had 11 earthquakes under Lake Tahoe with no recorded earthquakes for over 7,500 years. So things are changing. So that's one issue that's going to have to be taken into consideration. And I haven't seen a geological report yet on this whole thing. We need to know what's going on. There's several drift mines in that area that were tunneled out during the gold rush that are still there. And they're like vacant chasms where they drifted up the tertiary river channels, dug all the material out and processed it for gold. And all those claims, from what I can see, are still valid. I work with the Gem and Mineral Society here in El Dorado County. And so there's a lot of issues coming up with that. I think one of the biggest issues is traffic. What are you guys going to do with traffic? I think the money would be more well spent with doing something about Pleasant Valley Road, because we now have gridlock on that road, which increases air pollution and everything else. And developing this land here is going to magnify that issue. So, I mean, Big Cut Road can't handle the traffic, neither can Quarry Road. And the only other way I can see getting in there is maybe where Cedar Ravine crosses over the Weber Creek Bridge.
Thank you very much, sir, for your comments. We're gonna have to keep you to the 3
Oh,
minutes.
okay,
I'm
I had a bunch more.
sorry.
And I need to get the information on who the geologist is for this area that works for the county. I would like to get that because I'd like to have a meeting with him.
Thank you very much. Come on down, man. And I'll just remind everyone too as well about the project email that's on the website and that was part of the notice of preparation. Utilize that email as much as anyone would like and ask as many questions as you would like, and we'll certainly respond. Thank you.
My name is Michelle Buellert. I live on Quarry Road, lived there for over 45 years. And as a larger part, the Buellert family has lived on Quarry Road in the Ringgold Valley for over 120 years. So there's deep roots in our family there. I have 4 significant concerns. The first is the tangible negative impact on wildlife within this project, especially in the Ringgold Valley. From the very brief, almost tiny writing on Shahira's post up there, I could see that on the bottom of the list where she stated no negative impact. Wildlife was in that, and I disagree. Also, the loss of agricultural grazing land, which has been for decades out there. The profound impact, negative impact on the water table. To my knowledge, all of us out there are on wells. That was also in the no negative impact bottom of the page, and I disagree strongly with that. And lastly, the increase of traffic on Quarry Road with additional parcels and properties out there. There's already enough traffic as it is, by no fault of the Brunius family. Rock trucks going up and down Quarry Road. Also, Quarry Road is used, unfortunately, as a shortcut between the Pleasant Valley area and further on towards Diamond Springs, rather than people going down Pleasant Valley Road because it's gridlock, as the previous speakers said. I get that EID owns the land. They want to make money off their land. But do we really want to turn El Dorado County into another Folsom? Stand on the county line and look west. Do we want to become that? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Correct. Just a reminder to folks, if you can make a verbal comment at the microphone, we'd appreciate it, because all of this information is going to be sent via recording to the environmental consultant so that they accurately capture all the concerns. So if you have a comment, we'd invite you, please come on up.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Charles Bertolet. I own some property outside of this project. But looking at this current zoning, EID, open space, so that's basically parkland, open space, I believe. And the proposed zoning is low density residential. So is EID going into the real estate business? Will any of these parcels be developed? Is that zoning LDR? It just says so, but it's not really gonna happen. I'm just wondering how we're gonna transition what is otherwise open space land into a into residential, and who's gonna be in charge of that, and will there be auctions on each parcel of land? And that's my main question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Marty Knight. I live in Escaton Village in Placerville. We received notification also because of our proximity to the project, even though it's on the other side. The reason I'm here is that I realized that it is not to a point where there is a developer and project is being brought forward. But before the project starts, I too have concerns, and I believe the residents of Escaton do too, with regard to egress and ingress roads for the project area. That would definitely impact with noise and air pollution and other things. Blair's Road is the road that leads into our neighborhood, and it is dead-ended in our neighborhood, but it is a good straight shot down from the airport area to Highway 50 and the larger retail establishments in Placerville City and the hospital, for example. So I would just like to go on record that before a project is proposed, before people go to develop, to not impact our particular area with roads that might lead in that direction. And it does sound as if the roads surrounding the project are going to be a big issue. So that I just want to make sure that that is noted before any projects begin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
And hello, I'm Deanna DePoli. I live off of Cedar Ravine in Tecolote. It seems to me that this whole project that has been since the 1960s suddenly comes under a whole umbrella of taking away the ability to just leave it as it is. That's one concern. The second concern is with the IED since 1960, when they purchased all that land, they have absolutely not touched 1 ounce of it. It's a tremendous fire hazard. And, you know, I talked to you today, Tom, and, you know, PG&E came in to remove trees that were diseased and problematic. And I have 3 acres and 91 trees were taken out. And so right below us, as you come up Tecolote, that is all IAD land, and it is completely overgrown. It's a complete fire hazard. And I would imagine that most of EID's land hasn't been touched in 60 years. So that's my concern with that. along with everyone else, what they said, traffic. And what EID wants to do is just make it, they want to remove these boundaries so that they can take it and just chop it up and sell it off. And I don't think anybody in our area, I mean, we live out there for that reason, you know, that it's quiet, and we certainly don't want big developments coming in.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Janelle Hernandez. I live on Sac Hill. And when I first got this, it disturbed me greatly that in going forward with the plan, there's no open space designated along Weber Creek. We have 2 endangered species there threatened. The red and the yellow-legged frog. It also becomes a huge critter highway in the late summer when it's so dry. There's no water. And so even some of the dangerous critters we all live with and don't normally see, we do see along that creek, Ringgold and Weber. So going forward with the plans, I would like to see some designated open space to be able to have the wildlife and the threatened wildlife still have their sanctuary without being developed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Dawn Modena. I live in the project area. The environmental consultant stated that issues related to a lot of construction aren't going to be considered because that's not expected in the future. I think that the notice that went out said that the expectation may be 80 construction permits and up to 10 ADUs. And I think that that is incredibly conservative, and the scope of the EIR should consider the possible construction. So the real possibility is many of the large parcels in the project area will in the future be divided up. So they're being designated RE5, and some of them are quite large. So if you take, instead of taking the number of parcels and assuming 80 houses, if you take the number of acres that could be subdivided into RE5 or RE10 per the notice, you could be looking at up to 177 new houses. So I just think it's important to make sure that the EIR, the environmental consultant, recognizes that and takes that into account, because many of the areas she's not planning to consider should absolutely be considered. There'll be a much bigger impact because of construction and development than the EIR is currently going to consider.
Thank you very much.
I'm Caroline Mueller. I live on Coon Hollow Road. I'm not in the lines of your map, but I'm near it, and so received a notice. But I do have a parcel within it, but that's not where I live. Okay. My concern is pretty much what she is saying. EID, if they were going to leave it as how the parcels are now existing and you had one house, that's one thing. But I'm pretty sure the EID is going to want to make as much money as they can. And then they'll come to the county and ask for things to be rezoned, split up their parcels. And just like she was saying, if you, okay, you've got it R10 or R5, and they're going to chop it up as small as they can. And that was supposed to be an open area even before it was, the parcels were set as they were for one house. My fear is that EID will also look to put in a subdivision. They'll try to put in apartments, duplexes, all these people. And of course, there isn't roads for it. People are on wells, but other than that, there is the wildlife. I have 24 acres and I raise cattle. I'm already, I've lost 5 head of cattle already from mountain lions, okay? So you start developing that, they're coming more at me again, and the bears that come in too. So the wildlife needs an area. In the summertime, when you're going up like Coon Hollow or going down the road, you can see the deer panting because they have no water. They usually very often come to mine because I have water troughs all around the property and I don't put fences so high, they can jump over and come get it and have the water. And I have a pond, a large pond too, that's, like an acre. So, but now, those poor deer are panting, they're looking for food. I feed a lot of them, not as buying food, but I irrigate my pasture. So they're of course eating up my pasture that is meant for my cattle, but I don't do anything to harm the deer or anything like that or keep them away. But what I'm saying is you develop this other area, that's where the people, these animals are living now for your bears and your mountain lions and your foxes and, their bobcats, all of this. And so where are they to go to? And that, it looks fine now on paper, but I don't think that's what's going to reality is going to be. There's always dollar signs in everybody's eyeballs, and that's what they're looking for. And we moved there and live there to have a rural area and peace and have animals.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Brunius. The concern that I have about the whole project is that EID claims that they've come up with alternative water sources, but really nothing has seemed to have appeared. It seems to all, more straws in the cup, but no bigger cup. And with as much energy and resources that have been expelled to make this even possible, so, oh yeah, we changed our mind. That is of great concern, and it, as has been mentioned, so many of us are on wells, and the water table keeps getting drawn lower and lower and lower. And in the very area that this project is, there's no municipal water there anyway. And I personally think it's more important to have the water resource and recreational use of the lake. And I think it's in the greater good of the community than more homes. And, that's my opinion. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just a quick reminder, we have about 6 minutes remaining in this meeting and we still have to take comment from Zoom participants as well.
Hi, Diana Mojane. I live inside Texas Hill Estates. I'm more curious about what's going on with it. One question I have is the rezone. We're going to take it away and it'll become the property it would have been if it had never been put in. Have I got that right? Right now it's zoned to be a reservoir, but you're going to basically unzone it as a reservoir, and then it'll revert back to the property it would have been if the reservoir never comes. Okay, I just simpled it out a little bit. But the property as it was zoned right now, well, basically the open area and the residential. If this is totally taken out, will that property stay under the same zoning or the same use as it was back then? The ones right now, little parcels in there, if they're listed open space or residential or whatever, they will revert back to that at that time.
Well, just to let folks know, if your properties were, or if you know folks that are in the affected area, there is a list of the approximately 120 parcels that were affected by some part of either a zone change or a general plan designation change. Those are all listed. So it would, that chart, which is table, I believe, 1-7, I believe it was the last pages of that notice. You would find your assessor's parcel number and it would show you what the existing general plan is and zoning is and what it would be changed to. So that at the end of the process, it would revert back to, like you said, what it was if the lake had never been proposed in the first place.
Okay. So it's basically not going to change, or it can change from the way it was, say, in 1955 when it was created. It was residential. That could change to something else by the time this project is done.
Well, I can't speak to what the zoning was in the 50s or 1960s, but in general, the special zones such as open space did not come about until the creation of this reservoir, potential reservoir boundary. And so this would be changing that back to our best approximation of what it was if there were no reservoirs in the plans, no reservoir.
Okay. But then it will revert to EID, to whoever owned it. It'll
No,
revert back to that
this does
person.
not change, this project does not change property ownership whatsoever. This project just changes lines and colors on a map.
Okay. And the owners-
Essentially.
The owners would have to request rezoning at that point.
No, the zoning is being changed to revert back to what it would have been. The zoning and general plan is changing for most of the affected parcels, but only to match the existing zoning and general plan designations of the surrounding properties,
Okay.
as if the lake was never there, essentially.
Okay.
So we're not
That's-
proposing any new lines on a map or any changes beyond our best attempt to undo what was there.
Okay. Thank you.
Aurora, we'll probably be going over our time limit today, I'm sure.
Hi, my name is Dennis Holcomb, and I realize you're running a little late, so I'll be brief. I'm curious, your document says that a conservative estimate would be 80 new homes, 10 ADUs, and that's a conservative estimate. Yet that impact didn't make it onto the top 5 list of things that the environmental consultant is looking at. So I'm curious how they designate what's important and what isn't. So related to that would be my specific question would be about fire access and egress. We saw what happened in the Paradise Fire. You put 80 new homes in that congested area, it's going to be a big problem both for fire equipment going in and people trying to get out. And I share many of the same comments that others have made. I don't understand how EID can, where the water is going to come from, because they seem to be running short in other parts of the county. Maybe related to that would be the carbon footprint. So you're going to put a lot of traffic on the road. That's a physical problem. Then the subsequent problem would be the carbon footprint from all the cars that are going to be impacting that area. Those are the things that seem like they should be addressed up front, especially given the stated impact of this project. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hi, my name's Catherine Hilmer, and I am third generation of 4 that has taken ownership of 10-acre property on Pleasant Valley Road. And a lot of my concerns have been addressed, or I share with people. And one of the things I keep wondering is, why do you have to go back 60 years to rezone at 5 acres when we've all moved on and we see the destruction and we see the impact of development? I mean, we know so much more now. Why? What is sacred about the 5 acres? And I wanted to add that, on our acreage, I mean, it's probably relatively small, but over the 10 years, what used to be an oasis is now we get traffic noise. We can't have our windows open at night because we can't sleep. And there's nowhere on the property to get away from that noise. I worry constantly about family, my kids going out onto the road when people seem to be driving fast and aggressive, and everybody's kind of cranky about, the traffic. And we get exhaust fumes. And also, I'm finding a reality is that a single home, you're getting, that could be an extended family, it could be shared housing, but that's going to come with, it's not, the house with the picket fence, it's a house, and with the housing problems, lots of people in these homes, which means like 4 or 5 cars. And that's also impacting, I wonder if that's something that's considered. There's a lot of illegal, people living in trailers. And everybody knows it, but that's not going to be, accounted for. But also we have all of our neighbors most of our neighbors on all sides have put up fences, and there's a little break where all the wildlife comes through, and we care about them. So we also have some fountains and some ponds, and they come in, and there's their oasis. So yeah, it's I think we should know better now than we did in the 60s. That 5 acres is not a lot.
Thank you.
Excuse me if I'm still confused. The property is owned by EID, but the county's involved in doing what? Because how can you do something with somebody else's property?
Many of the parcels are individually owned by private property owners, and then EID owns many of the parcels that were directly slated to be a possible future lake.
But the future lake, okay, let's just take the future lake, not the property of other people. Isn't this basically what we're talking about, the future lake property?
And kind of the surrounding area of it, where it was within what's called the take line. So it's the lake plus a little bit of an area for impact.
All right, but is it still owned by EID?
Some of those parcels are owned by private property owners.
But are the others owned by EID?
No, they own the property.
So this lake is now owned by whom?
Multiple people, including
Multiple people. So
EID.
EID is already out of the picture.
No, EID owns some of the parcels up there. And then others are owned by private property owners that have homes up there.
So what is the acreage of that which you are addressing?
Total acreage.
That is not already privately owned?
With the parcel number, what's the parcel numbers?
Well, just looking at it, I'd have to pull up it. Some of you, if you have that notice of preparation, some of that information is also in there. But I believe the irrigation district owns around 70% of the affected 120 parcels. That's real close. So the majority, and also some of the largest size parcels as well. And so there is a breakdown with more detail. So the bulk of the properties that are currently drawn on the map are owned by the El Dorado Irrigation District right now.
Okay.
So hopefully that notice explained a little more detail on that.
Sorry, I didn't read. I just learned this yesterday late, and I didn't have time to really do a lot of research yet. But I'm just confused about this ownership process and why now we're in here in a county meeting. It's not cooking.
Well, and the issue with why this is also a county jurisdiction is because our county is the local land use planning agency. We are the governmental body that plans for local land uses anywhere in the county, with the exception of incorporated cities like Placerville. So those lands have to be included in our general plan planning document, as well as in our zoning and general plan designation maps. And so that's why the county had to take that on to help plan for this reservoir, even though the county never owned the majority of the lands in that area.
So what if the EID were to quitclaim their portion over to the county?
That's a private property question. And I don't know, that's the same as one owner to another. That's more of a civil question.
That's true.
In other words, can I sell my property? That's a civil question. That's not, right.
And I understand the zoning. I'm all in favor of staying with the zoning. But it's just something here isn't just quite clicking with me. So thank you very much. I'm still a little confused, but thank you.
Hello, my name is Jay-Zach Leonard. Lived here for pretty much all my life, moved to the area just recently in the affected zone. My concern is if you convert it back to rezoning it, with all the building they're doing in El Dorado Hills and everywhere else, they're gonna run out of water. So they really need to think about that, and that's my main concern. You need to keep it the way it is so that you have a reserve. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so when it comes to selling property, if people don't want to sell their private property, are you guys gonna claim eminent domain?
No, we wouldn't claim eminent domain if somebody wanted to sell their property.
No, if they don't want to sell their property and you guys, and the county, whatever.
We're not
wants to
buying,
buy
this
it.
doesn't involve any buying of property by the county. This is a paper exercise so that owners of property up there have the constraint of the take line taken off of their property and with consistent zoning. So there'd be no eminent domain, there'd be no forced, sell or anything like that. It's really to make sure that the zoning is consistent up there and to make sure, since a reservoir isn't going to be built up there in the future, that take line is taken off the map so that existing property owners can get a building permit for various things like sheds or an ADU, possibly, things like that.
Okay, thank you, Brian and Tom.
Come on up, sir. We'll give you another minute.
Talking about the legal issues of the development, I feel strongly the fact that even though EID is looking towards the future as far as water supplies go, I think they're underestimating them totally. They're going to need that Texas Hill Reservoir in 8 to 10 years. We've already had water shortages. We've had several issues with water in this area that we're talking about. I own 3 parcels on Quarry Road. And by the way, Quarry Road is not a legal road. It's not a legal county road. Everybody that owns property along Quarry Road, it shows as an easement on their property. It's not a county road. In fact, if everybody was really educated and they got a ticket on Quarry Road, they can go to court and fight it because the officers that are doing that are out of their jurisdiction. But I think they need to keep the reservoir project intact. And we have to remember, EID is not in the business of real estate. So these parcels that are getting cut up, nobody's going to be able to buy them. And the problems there is the exorbitant building permit fees in this county are horrible and they're unjustified. For me to build a 3-bedroom house on a 7-acre parcel along Quarry Road, the permit was $162,000. What the hell, And what it's going to make the land available. And if these parcels are undeveloped, nobody's going to be able to go in and buy it and get a mortgage on it. You can't get a mortgage on selling vacant land. So it's going to make it really attractive to the developers that are going to come in, try to buy up a group of parcels from EID and build housing tracts on it. And I know what you guys are doing really is a precursor of all of this, but in the motion of changing the zoning, I don't think it's going to help much at all. It's going to actually put the county in a position where it's going to cost them millions and millions of dollars. And as far as everybody here that's interested in going to the building, the meeting and everything for all of this, they can actually form a coalition and get attorneys to stop it. I do a lot of work with Avalon Bay Development, and like what's going on in Diamond Springs, I mean, that's water under the bridge. They're not going to be able to stop that development. But unless they do something about the traffic, I think the county has no business in changing any zoning laws whatsoever. Pleasant Valley Roads, it's going to be a freeway in 10 years. This area is going to completely change. And water is going to be the big issue. During the droughts of 2006, 7, and 8, a lot of the wells along Quarry Road went dry, a lot of them. And it's an issue. Water is actually a more precious commodity than the gold that's in the ground. So I think they should leave the zoning alone.
Thank you
leave
very
the
much,
take
sir.
line alone so they can save the water resources for the future. That's going to be the problem.
Thank you for your comments, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to get together with your geologists too, with this county, and go over some litigation with them.
Thank
you. Take care.
Anybody else in the room? Anybody at all? You want to go again? No? You want to? Yep. You can ask. Sure, shoot.
Sorry, I wasn't involved in the very beginning of this, so I don't know what prompted it. Who brought this idea and proposed the action?
Well, I can tell you, we get a slew of complaints on a steady basis from existing homeowners up in that affected area because they can't get any kind of a building permit. And so this has been a long ongoing issue for those homeowners.
Is it possible to change that take line to circle around those private properties and say, it's gone?
Yeah, I don't think that that's logistically possible, but
It's not.
yeah,
Okay, just asking the question of who started this proposed action.
yeah, this was really brought about by those existing homeowners.
Because they want to build.
Yeah, they want the same rights that everybody else has for if they have a single family home. Thank you. Now we have, go ahead. We have Brian Deason from the El Dorado Irrigation District that would like to. I know, right?
Yeah, just turn it
Yeah, turn it around.
Yeah.
Otherwise. My name is Brian Deason, Environmental Resources Supervisor for El Dorado Irrigation District. I appreciate you all coming out today, and I wanted to hear the scope of your comments, and then so that I could address the range of them. First thing I want to point out is, at this time, EID has no plans to construct a reservoir at Texas Hill. It's not included in any of our long-term planning documents. Those documents currently go out to 2045. Timeframe. At the same time, our board has expressed that they don't want to foreclose the opportunity that at some time in the future, they may need to build a reservoir at Texas Hill. And so they've expressed that they have no interest in selling any of the property. So this project, as a result of this project, this is a county project. EID has no future action it can take from this project. If EID were to sell its property in the future, it would be subject to a whole separate, publicly transparent process with opportunities of public involvement similar to this. So this is simply the county correcting a zoning inconsistency that occurred, I believe, in 2015. during the rezoning update. So it's going to actually revert back to what it was. The zoning will revert back to what it was in 2014 prior to that action. Is that correct, Tom?
So it has been a complicated history of the land uses on this project, including a civil court case. But to make a very long story very short, yes, we're reverting back to what the zones would be without the lake there. And yes, if there were folks in 2014 that wanted to build accessory structures to their existing residence, they could do that. Because most of those parcel zones were not changed, even though our general plan map showed most of those lots as open space. But our zoning was still, for the most part, still allowed residential uses until 2015. But the issue in 2015 was an issue of state law, because the state mandates, it's not a choice, that local agencies' zoning maps be consistent with their own general plans. And our general plan is what had that take line, that reservoir boundary, and those lands that were supposed to be open space. So because the state had told the counties they had to correct the maps to be consistent with the general plan, we had to take the county had to take the estate residential 5-acre pieces that were zoned up until 2014 and convert them all to open space or recreational. And that was based on a state mandate for consistency. So that was one of the recent issues with that.
So the basis for that reservoir and that take line is based on information and studies that was done in the 1960s. I don't know how accurate that line represents what a reservoir would actually look like. So a new reservoir at that location would be subject to feasibility studies, design reviews. It would, so we'd still have, a lot of new information would need to be developed in order to develop a reservoir at that site.
It removes the line, but it would still go back there.
Yeah, I don't know the basis of that line. So I can't speak to its accuracy or need for a reservoir. That's the map that I understand that the take line was based off of. So just reiterate, so at this time, EID has no plans to construct a reservoir at Texas Hill. We want to retain we don't want to foreclose that opportunity if indeed it is needed in the future.
Sure. But I guess the question, if I could rephrase it, is why were the EID properties, as I understand your question, considered as part of this rezone rather than just the privately owned properties? Is that what I'm hearing? Right. Well, I can't speak to all of those details because some of those, as Brian was saying, some of those details are outside of the county's jurisdiction in terms of purpose of the IDs. Super long-term plans for the land, that's a completely different process. I can't answer it. One of the reasons why the zoning was done more as a even blanket is because we have single-family residential properties, however they came about, that are peppered within properties that are also owned by EID. And so that could, one of the facts that the county had to look at was creating islands of residential zones surrounded by different zones. Correct. Right. Right. Well, and part of this, to bring us back to the purpose of this meeting, part of this meeting is an EIR scoping public comment meeting is also to fully flesh out the environmental impact analysis. But ultimately, the ultimate decision still rests with our county decision makers because it is a matter of policy. That's not something that, that staff decide. So as part of a fully informed EIR, as well as how we describe the project, we can best frame everything and then forward it to our decision makers for their policy determinations. Because some of this policy was direction given to us by our county board of supervisors, and they are the policy makers. So that's part of why we're forwarding on the package as policymakers directed us to do that. So you're right. Some of this, as an opinion, one could say one thing or another, but as a policy call, we defer to the policy makers. And so that's what I frame that as. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and that's a very good comment for as far as what's being zoned what and for what purpose. That's something that we'll be certainly taking a look at. I believe they'll be paying what they would pay for that zone, yes.
Cost of permits to the point that stymies any type of growth.
Well, that's I think a different issue for a different day if it's besides the scope of the EIR. Yeah. I think, yeah. Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Aurora, why don't we go see if there's any commenters online? Let's go to commenters online, everybody.
Now taking public comment from Zoom participants, taking public comment from Joanne Helbig. Please unmute yourself.
Hey. Am I unmuted now?
There you go. Yes.
Okay, great. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone thank Mr. Purcell and everyone for coming here and speaking with us about this. I wanted to also mention that we cannot hear anyone who's not up at the microphone and that the chat has been disabled. So we have not been able to make comments this whole time. A few things I wanted to say. And first of all, I moved here about 3 years ago. I'm just outside the zone. The reason I moved to this area is because I love it and I love the open space. I love being able to be in this rural, beautiful area and enjoy all the sites nearby. If I wanted to live in Folsom or Cameron Park, I would have purchased in Folsom or Cameron Park. I am very fearful about this project, and actually it makes me feel sick. And the reason why is because what I see in our future is not just these landowners who already own land around the take line being able to build on their properties, but the EID divesting itself completely of all open space, which is completely unacceptable. Okay, you can't just piggyback on these private homeowners and say, oh yeah, you know, in order to divest, to allow them to build, we're just going to get rid of all of our open space, and to hell with the red-legged frog and the bear and the mountain lions and everyone who lives around here who has to deal with the traffic. May I remind you that we just had a huge fire 6 miles away from this area at the Calder Fire. During that time, we were running our sprinklers on our roofs because we thought we were next. There was no water coming out of our sprinklers at one point because everyone was running their water at the same time. We're on wells. If there is a significant catastrophe or fire, not only will we not be able to get off of Cedar Ravine because it is flanked on both sides by completely dried, dead trees and brush for miles, but we will not be able to protect our homes at all. We will get stuck on that road with our families, our children, and our pets, and we will suffer the same fate as those people in paradise. I urge you to take a long-range view of this situation and not ignore the realities of this extreme high fire zone that has no city water. I think I agree with Mr. Wood that we really need to revisit the reservoir idea, maybe on a smaller scale, maybe just on EID land. But I think that talking about selling the EID land to the highest bidder, which is what is going to happen, is extremely irresponsible. And thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Now taking public comment from Linda Campbell.
Hello, everyone. Linda Campbell, El Dorado County resident. So one of the first things I want to ask is, how does this proposal conflict with or overlay with another pending project, which is the Weber Creek Canyon Important Biological Corridor? So I think that's something to factor in because I think that is still something pending with long-range planning. And we certainly don't want to wipe that out right now. I think that maybe if this is part of that Weber Creek area, then that would kind of cover some of the concerns with the resources, the wildlife resources, things like that. One of the other things when talking about changing the proposed land use, I think it's important to factor in what currently is allowed for low density and medium density residential, because I think that goes a lot to the concerns, especially the people in the neighboring areas. Because by doing this changing it from open space, to everybody's point, eventually this is probably going to be sold. And if we start thinking about how many projected units there could be, then that really has to factor into some sort of transportation and circulation analysis. I think if this goes before the Board of Supervisors without that, I think it would be a disservice to all of the residents in that area. Also agree with potentially adding in the geology and mineral resource review. And then with the cultural resources review in the EIR, is that also include tribal cultural resources? I just want to make sure of that, just in case there's some in that area. And then maybe add in the agricultural resource review. Because again, it's thinking of, even though there's no building projects planned right now, it certainly opens up the opportunity for that significantly. And so I think that would be a benefit to all of the people in the area that we start to look at that. And it gives us additional information as it goes before the Board of Supervisors. That's all I have. Thank you.
Now taking public comment from Larry Rolla.
Good afternoon. This is Larry Rolla from Diamond Springs. I have looked at and worked with the community in Diamond Springs, El Dorado at some of the developments that we have proposed in the area. And one of the things that is pretty consistent when surveying and soliciting input from the community is two things. One is traffic, the other is water. And so what I would really like to see is EID present to the public their long-term water resources and what they're forecasting and why Texas Hill Reservoir is not needed. I think the public is very confused. I know EID does this. They do 5-year projections. They've got great presentations. I've been to some of them. They just don't do it to the public. They don't educate the public, and they don't have a two-way conversation with the public where we can ask questions, we can get the feedback, we can better understand where the water resources are coming from and why we should feel comfortable or uncomfortable with the projections based on EID. So that's the first thing that I think we need to better understand, and I think it would really help this project along if we understood that. The second issue is really the traffic, and so when you look at this proposal and the 80 new homes and the 10 ADUs, what would that do if those were developed? What would that do to the traffic on Pleasant Valley today? And I think that needs to come forward, and it needs to be studied before we even go forward with this. Is we need to understand, if this development went forward, if these 80 new homes and 10 ADUs were developed, based on those projections, where would the traffic go? What would it look like? And how would it impact our local communities? We don't have the infrastructure. There's no way for us to grow Pleasant Valley Road. We can't turn it into a 4-lane highway. So infrastructure up here in the foothills is one of the #1 concerns, because we can't grow it. We can't put in expressways. And so we're very limited. We're limited today. And so any large developments should be seriously looked at before we even go to an EIR. And so I would really like to see that from the county, is to look at what the potential growth would be here and help us understand that, what it would do to the traffic. So it looks like, based on the information, that we have 67 parcels that are owned by EID and 53 that are privately owned. I would think that if we're looking to go forward with this, then we should just be focusing on the 53 privately owned parcels and not rezone the 67 EID parcels, and just keep those as open space or something that we could do something with in the future. So those are my main concerns. So thank you for your time.
There's no further public comment.
Aurora, if we could go ahead and put up the website again. We need to, as the meeting was advertised, to go from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I do want to respect folks' time, but I want to put up the conclusion of the meeting, what the next steps are and how folks can be connected with me or the other county staff as we go through the project. So if we go to the main Texas Hill page, one link back. Or just on the blue bar on the left where it says Texas Hill main page, or scroll down. Right above FAQs, it says Texas Hill Reservoir on the left, down. Keep it going. One more. That one. Pardon our new website. It works well, but it's different than the old one. This is the FAQ again. Try it, click on it again. So the left down where it says rezone and general plan amendment. Up. You have to have it right on the farther down. Up. Never mind. It's not. Can you hit the back button? Does that work? Because it seems like it's not. In any case, I want to let you folks know while we're finding it. If you go to the Texas Hill Reservoir main page, at the bottom of the page, there's a subscribe button. So make sure to click on that subscribe button to enter your email address, and staff will make sure to send out any email updates for the project. That is upcoming meetings. If there's a upcoming EIR meeting or Planning Commission meeting or Board of Supervisors meeting or any other meetings, you'll get notified there. And then also at the bottom of the main page is my name and contact information. And if you have any comments, I would encourage you to all send to the email address, which is Texas Hill Rezones, all one word, Texas Hill Rezones at edcgov.us. Same as our county emails. So Texas Hill Rezones at edcgov.us, and make sure that you send those comments. If I am not in the office, other staff also see that inbox. The consultant will see that inbox. We will all make sure that your comments are sent where they need to go. So with that, if you have other questions, I will stick around for a couple of moments. Brett and I and the county team will be here. But otherwise, we are looking at releasing the EIR again in a few months. Do we have that on the main page? Go up, schedule, project schedule, and up. So this is the anticipated schedule as it looks right now. And one of the items that we have to look at is the amount of time it takes to accurately compile the public comments, which we're very happy we've received today. So we're looking at putting out a draft EIR sometime around the fall of this year. There will be notices to all of you, or if you're on the list, as well as subscribing, you will get those notices. You'll have another opportunity for reviewing the draft documents and providing more comments. And then looking at the other schedule, we're looking at a final EIR right now as of the winter of 2025. The Planning Commission and the other items, let's see, is that correct? So we're looking at early 2025 for the final EIR to go out, get comments, come back, and then go before the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors as well. But those pieces will be updated as the project goes through. So do keep in touch on that. So with that, I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. I know it's been a long meeting. I'll be here for a moment, but I appreciate your participation.